What if I told you that someone sitting in a room, fully aware of who you are, fully aware of where you live, fully aware of how much you mean to the people around you, had already made a decision? A quiet, cold, calculated decision. Not a decision to argue. Not a decision to post something on social media. A decision that crossed a line most human beings would never even think to approach. A decision that, if carried out, would have changed lives forever. And what if I also told you that the person who uncovered this decision isn't a detective, isn't law enforcement, and isn't somebody who heard it through 3 layers of gossip? This is family. This is blood. And blood doesn't lie when blood is scared. Before we go any further, and I need you to stay locked in because every single second of this video matters, I want you to understand something. What you are about to hear is not entertainment. This is not drama for the sake of views. This is a story with real names, real places, real dollars, and a real request that could have ended in a tragedy that would have made headlines across the entire country. We are talking about a situation where $5,000 allegedly stood between somebody's best friend and the worst thing you could imagine. $5,000. That's it. That's all a life was worth to somebody. And the person who was supposedly offered that $5,000? She went quiet for a while. But she's not quiet anymore. And today, we are going to hear what she has to say. Stay right here. This is the video you were looking for. If you are new to this channel and you found this video because you wanted the real story, not the version that's been cut, filtered, and watered down, hit that subscribe button right now. We don't do halfway here. We go all the way in, every single time. Now, let's get into it. Let's start at the beginning, because context is everything when we are talking about something this serious. There are 3 names you need to know going into this story. The first is Remy Ma, one of the most respected, battle-tested, lyrically gifted women to ever touch a microphone in the history of hip-hop. A woman who has survived legal battles, personal setbacks, and a level of public scrutiny that would have broken most people 10 times over. A woman who came back from prison, came back from heartbreak, came back from every single thing the world threw at her, and stood taller every time. That is who we are talking about when we say Remy Ma. Not just a celebrity. A survivor. A fighter. A mother. The second name is Papoose, her husband, her partner, her ride or die in every sense of the phrase. A man who has stood by Remy through everything. A man whose loyalty to his wife has been tested over and over again, not by Remy, but by outside forces who decided that their marriage was a target. And here is where the story gets dark, because the forces coming after that marriage are not subtle. They are not operating in the shadows. They are loud, they are reckless, and they have repeatedly shown a willingness to go further than any reasonable person would ever go. The third name is Clarissa Shields, the boxing champion, the Olympic gold medalist, the woman who built a career on power, discipline, and the ability to break someone down systematically and completely. On paper, Clarissa Shields is a champion. In the ring, she is unmatched. But we are not talking about what happens in the ring today. We are talking about what allegedly happens when the cameras go off and the gloves come off and the real personality starts to show. Because according to sources close to this situation, and I mean blood close, family close, what Clarissa Shields does when no one is watching is something that her fans, her sponsors, and the sporting world would never see coming. And then there is a 4th person in the story. Not a celebrity. Not a public figure. Someone who is trusted. Someone who was brought into a very private world and was privy to very private conversations. A blood relative of Clarissa Shields who, at some point, was one of the people Clarissa trusted most. And now that trust has been broken, not because of jealousy, not because of petty family drama, but because of what she was allegedly asked to do. And what she was allegedly asked to do is something she has decided the world needs to know about. More specifically, she has decided Remy Ma needs to know about it. Here is the moment that shifted everything in this story. A clip surfaced, live-recorded, unscripted, unfiltered, featuring a conversation where the details of an alleged proposition began to spill out. Not rumors. Not anonymous tips. An actual person, speaking from personal experience, describing what she says she was offered and what she was asked to do in exchange for that offering. And when you hear the specifics of what she describes, it doesn't sound like exaggeration. It doesn't sound like somebody trying to get their 15 minutes of fame. It sounds like somebody who sat with this information for too long and finally reached the point where silence became more dangerous than speaking. What she alleges is this: Clarissa Shields allegedly approached her, someone within her own family circle, and offered her $5,000. $5,000 to do harm to one of Remy Ma's closest friends. Not a stranger. Not somebody on the periphery. One of Remy Ma's best friends. And the cousin, according to everything that has been reported from this conversation, didn't just give a vague account of what was asked. She was specific. She was graphic. She described what was asked of her, when she was asked to do it, and where this supposed act was supposed to take place. That level of detail doesn't come from imagination. That level of detail comes from memory. From something you lived through. From something that kept you up at night because you couldn't believe what you were hearing from someone who shares your blood. Think about the psychology of that moment for a second. Imagine sitting across from a family member, not an enemy, not a rival, but someone you love, and listening to them ask you to hurt somebody for money. Imagine the shock. Imagine the silence that fills the room. Imagine looking into the eyes of someone you grew up with and realizing that they have crossed into a place you never expected them to go. That is the alleged experience of Clarissa Shields' cousin. And instead of going to the media first, instead of going to the internet first, instead of posting it on social media for clout, her first instinct was to get a message to Remy Ma. Because she believes Remy needs to know how serious this truly is. She doesn't want press. She wants Remy protected. That is not the behavior of someone fabricating a story. That is the behavior of someone who is genuinely frightened by what they witnessed. Now, there's going to be a portion of the audience watching this video who hears $5,000 and thinks, that's not that much. And in certain contexts, in certain tax brackets, in certain zip codes, they would be right. $5,000 is not a life-changing sum of money for someone who has it. But we are not talking about people who have it. We are talking about the world that exists beneath the surface of celebrity, the world that most people in entertainment never have to see unless they are specifically looking for it. And in that world, in the world of poverty, of desperation, of people who go to sleep wondering how they are going to eat tomorrow, $5,000 is enormous. $5,000 is rent for half a year. $5,000 is a car. $5,000 is the difference between making it another month or losing everything. And when someone is operating from that kind of desperation, and someone with money walks up to them and puts that sum on the table in exchange for a service, the calculus changes completely. The value of human life becomes transactional. And that is the era we are living in right now. We have watched it play out repeatedly in the music industry. We have watched beloved artists go to prison for allegedly putting money behind violence. We have watched indictments come down, we have watched trials unfold, and we have watched the pattern repeat itself over and over again, where somebody with resources decides that violence can be contracted like a service, like you are ordering something from a menu. It is not a new concept. But it becomes infinitely more alarming when the alleged target is connected to a woman who is already a public figure, who already has a documented, on-the-record history of someone expressing obsessive, threatening, and unstable behavior toward her. Because this doesn't exist in a vacuum. This alleged proposition didn't appear out of nowhere. It came from somewhere. It came from a well of emotion and obsession that has been building for a very long time. This is the part of the story where we need to slow down and look at the behavior pattern, because this is not a single incident. This is not an isolated moment of poor judgment. What we are looking at is a documented, repeated, escalating pattern of behavior that every person close to Remy Ma should be paying extremely close attention to. Because when you connect the dots, the picture that emerges is not just troubling. It is alarming. It is the kind of picture that professionals who study obsessive behavior and escalating threats would look at and immediately classify as high risk. Let's walk in. She received an overwhelming wave of public backlash. These are not opinions. These are not takes. These are documented outcomes that happened as a direct result of her own actions. And yet, and this is the part that should stop everyone cold, there are still people in her orbit telling her she did nothing wrong. So let us think about this from a purely logical standpoint. If you truly did nothing wrong, where is the ban coming from? If you were completely in the right, why is there a lawsuit? If your behavior was justified, why is the public reaction so overwhelmingly negative? These are not rhetorical questions designed to bully her. These are cause and effect observations. The consequences are the receipts. And the receipts do not lie. There is a version of Clarissa Shields that could have navigated this moment with dignity. She could have acknowledged that the situation got out of hand. She could have stepped back from social media. She could have let her legal team handle the fallout quietly while she refocused on the thing she actually does better than almost anyone alive, boxing. That version of Clarissa existed. That path was available. And instead, she went back online, fired off more shots, engaged with more people, and gave her critics even more material to work with. Not because she is stupid. Let us be absolutely clear about that. This is not a matter of intelligence. This is a matter of emotional management, of discernment, of understanding which battles are worth fighting and which ones are engineered specifically to keep you distracted and diminished. Because that is the thing about social media beefs that people do not talk about enough. They are rarely organic. They are rarely just two people who genuinely have something to work out. Most of the time, social media conflicts are engineered either by outside parties who benefit from the chaos or by the emotional triggers of the people involved, and they keep feeding themselves because both sides keep choosing engagement over exit. Every response is fuel. Every clapback is oxygen. And every time Clarissa types something, posts something, or reacts to something on social media in this context, she is choosing to keep the fire burning. She is making a choice. And the choice keeps costing her. Real quick, if this breakdown is hitting different for you, if you are sitting here and the layers of this story are landing the way I am laying them out, show some love right now. Hit that like button. Drop a comment. And if you have not subscribed yet, do it right now because we do not sugarcoat anything on this channel. We tell the truth, we back it up, and we do it every single time. Now let us keep going because we have not even gotten to the deepest part of this yet. Now we need to address the elephant that has been in the room this entire time. The central relationship drama that is driving all of this conflict. The situation involving Remy Ma, Papoose, and Clarissa Shields. And before we go any further, let me say this clearly. The goal here is not to take sides. Side-taking is for people who are more interested in winning arguments than understanding truth. The goal is to look at this situation as it actually is, not as the most devoted fans of each person want to frame it. And when you do that, what you see is a situation where everyone involved has made decisions that have consequences, and those consequences do not disappear just because you like one of the parties involved more than the other. Here is what we know. Remy Ma and Papoose are married. Legally. On paper. That marriage contract has not been dissolved. No divorce papers. No legal separation that has been made public. They are, right now, as this is being discussed, a married couple. That is fact number one, and it matters enormously because everything that flows from it is shaped by it. Now, separately from that, there are reports, social media statements, and on-record admissions that both parties have been involved with other people. That is fact number two. And fact number three is that Clarissa Shields has been openly connected to Papoose in a way that goes well beyond casual friendship. These are not mystery elements. These are not rumors that need to be pieced together from vague hints. They are documented. They have been admitted to, referenced publicly, and shown in real-time social media interactions. So when someone goes online and tries to frame this as a simple story of Papoose moving on after Remy allegedly cheated, they are telling a partial story. And partial stories are the most dangerous kind, because they carry just enough truth to feel credible while hiding the parts that would change everything. Yes, there are reports of both parties doing things that violated their marriage. Yes, Papoose and Remy's relationship appears to have fallen into serious dysfunction. But here is what the cheerleaders on Clarissa's side keep conveniently leaving out. You cannot have sex with a married man whose wife was once your friend, a woman who reportedly looked out for you, supported you, welcomed you, and then turn around and position yourself as the victim of that woman's behavior. You do not get to play both characters in the same story. You do not get to be the betrayed party and the one who committed the betrayal simultaneously. That is not how accountability works. And do not come at this with the argument that Remy started it, therefore everything after is justified. That is moral gymnastics performed at the highest level. Two wrongs have never produced a right. Not once in the history of human relationships. What they produce is exactly what we are watching right now, a three-way chaos machine that is destroying everyone's credibility simultaneously while the audience watches and the algorithms celebrate. Now here is where we need to get surgical. Because there is a layer to this situation that most people are skating right past. There is a financial reality underneath all of this drama that changes the entire texture of the story when you look at it. Papoose and Remy were reportedly dealing with serious financial pressure. Debt. 6 figures worth of it. A lien on their home. The kind of financial stress that puts extraordinary strain on any relationship, and in relationships that were already showing fractures, that kind of pressure can be the thing that accelerates a complete collapse. So when you see Remy Ma making certain decisions, when you see choices that seem surprising or out of character, you have to factor in the financial reality. Because desperate financial situations produce decisions that, in better circumstances, would never even be considered. That is not an excuse. It is context. And context is everything when you are trying to understand why people do what they do. Now, here's something that Christmas brought into sharp focus. Reportedly, Papoose bought Remy a mink coat during the holiday season, while Clarissa Shields reportedly received a backpack. Not a designer bag, a backpack. Now let that contrast sit for a moment. Let that image settle. Because in that single detail, in that one comparative gift choice, there is an entire story being told without words. About priorities. About where someone's deepest loyalties actually sit. About what the holiday gestures of a man in this situation actually reveal when you put them side by side. The woman he is publicly connected to gets a backpack. The woman he is still legally married to gets a mink coat. And people are out here trying to convince you that Clarissa Shields has the power in this dynamic. This brings us to something that is blunt but necessary. Clarissa was given a key to a home 2 years ago, and that person still has not moved in. 2 years. In any relationship context, if you give someone a key to your space and 2 years pass and they are still not living there, that is not a slow transition. That is an answer. It is just an answer nobody wants to say out loud. Keys do not mean commitment. Keys sometimes mean convenience. And when the key holder has a legal spouse who still controls the most significant legal and medical rights in their life, when that spouse could walk into a hospital room and that person cannot, when that spouse could make end-of-life decisions and that person has zero legal standing, you have to ask yourself honestly, what exactly is the nature of this arrangement? Because real power does not come from a key to an apartment. Real power in a marriage comes from the marriage itself. And that marriage still exists. The legal reality of Remy Ma's position is one that nobody in this drama seems to want to acknowledge, but that is critically important. If anything, were to happen to Papoose tomorrow, Remy Ma is his legal next of kin. She makes the decisions. She controls access. She holds every right that matters in the most serious moments a human being can face. And Clarissa Shields, no matter what was said or done publicly, has exactly zero legal authority in those moments. Zero. That is not an opinion. That is the law. And you can get all the keys you want, that still does not change it. Now this is where the story turns into something that a lot of people are not ready to hear. And I want you to think carefully about this, because it is the kind of observation that sounds conspiratorial at first, until you start lining up the facts. And then it sounds very, very logical. What if this entire situation, the public back and forth, the social media wars, the ongoing drama that keeps generating headlines, what if none of it is as organic as it appears? What if multiple parties in the story are benefiting financially and professionally from keeping the chaos alive? Not just tolerating the drama. Not just caught up in it emotionally. But actively participating in it because the drama is the product. Think about the attention economy. Think about how content works in 2024. Every time Clarissa Shields posts something inflammatory, the response numbers go through the roof. Every time Remy Ma engages, directly or indirectly, there is a wave of commentary, video reactions, social media posts, and digital conversation that generates visibility for every name attached to it. Papoose gets mentioned. Remy gets mentioned. Clarissa gets mentioned. People who are not relevant in certain conversations become relevant again because the drama pulls them back into the frame. And every mention, every view, every reaction is a unit of attention. And attention, in this current media landscape, converts directly to money. Now I am not sitting here claiming this is some perfectly coordinated operation with a boardroom strategy session and a PowerPoint deck. What I am saying is that it does not have to be perfectly coordinated to be mutually beneficial. Sometimes these arrangements are just understood. Sometimes everyone involved knows, on some level, that the performance is keeping them in the spotlight. And the spotlight is where careers get revived. The spotlight is where streaming numbers climb. The spotlight is where brands pay attention. So when you ask yourself why a divorce has not happened yet after all of this time and all of this very public dysfunction, that question has a financial answer alongside the personal one. Because a clean legal break would also break the narrative thread that is keeping all of these names in the daily conversation. And narratives in this era are worth money. Think about what happened on that Christmas post. The mink coat image. That was posted publicly. That was a deliberate choice. Nothing in this social media saturated world is accidental when the person making the choice has been performing for a camera long enough to know how every gesture reads to an audience. That image was a calculated move in a chess game that has been going on for years. And every response to it, including this commentary, including every YouTube video, including every Instagram post analyzing it, is part of the game. The only difference is knowing you are in the game versus playing without knowing the rules. One of those positions is power. The other one is being used. And the tragedy is that the person most likely to be on the wrong end of that equation is the one with the least to gain, and they cannot see it because the noise is too loud. Let us spend some time on something that comes up in conversations like this constantly. The accusation of judging. Who are you to judge? You do not know what is going on. You do not have all the information. These are the deflection shields people reach for when they want to shut down commentary on behavior that is publicly documented. And here is why that deflection does not hold up, and why it is important to dismantle it clearly, because people use this argument to defend the indefensible constantly. Judging, in the way the word is typically used as a criticism, means forming a conclusion about someone based on incomplete information. It means making assumptions. It means filling in gaps with bias instead of fact. That is what judging means in the moral sense of the word. Telling the truth is not that. Telling the truth is taking what people have openly, publicly, on record admitted to doing, and then accurately describing it. These are two completely different things. One is speculation. One is documentation. And when people are on camera, on live streams, in social media posts, openly describing their own behavior, the people watching and commenting on that behavior are not judging. They are responding to a public performance that was deliberately shared with the public. Here is the crucial distinction. If Remy Ma came on live and said she and Papoose were having problems, and then someone went online and said they must be sleeping around without any evidence, that would be judging. That would be conjecture. But that is not what happened. What happened is that parties involved in this situation went on record, repeatedly, in different formats, across extended periods of time, and described their own behavior in explicit terms. When someone tells you what they are doing, repeating it back to them is not judgment. It is a reflection. And sometimes the most uncomfortable thing in the world is having someone hold up a mirror. The people who immediately reach for you are judging them when situations like this are analyzed are often the same people, because dismissing it as it is just life, or people make mistakes, or who are we to judge, as we just discussed, does a disservice not just to the people involved, but to everyone being pulled into this situation as a result of choices that were made without their informed consent. There is a contract at the center of this story. A marriage contract. And that contract does not just exist on legal paper. It exists between the people who made it, and if they are people of faith, it exists before God as well. Now, regardless of your personal religious beliefs, you have to understand that when two people make that kind of covenant and one or both violates it, there are real consequences. Not imaginary ones. Not manufactured drama. Real ones. Emotional wounds. Broken trust. Children affected. Finances impacted. Extended family thrown into chaos. Other people who did not sign that contract, being pulled into a situation of moral compromise without full transparency. That last part is what makes adultery not just a private matter between two people. It becomes a contamination that spreads outward. It affects third parties. It changes the lives of people who never made the choice to be involved. And here is what makes it worse in this specific situation. The parties involved are not quietly navigating this in private. They are broadcasting it. In real time, to millions of people. And in doing so, they are normalizing behavior that has devastating real-world consequences, not for celebrities with financial cushions and public platforms, but for regular people watching this unfold and drawing conclusions about relationships, loyalty, commitment, and consequence that will filter into their own lives and choices. That is a responsibility, a massive one. And it is being handled with almost no awareness of its weight. Some people online try to deflect by saying the Bible teaches no sin is greater than another. That is simply inaccurate as a doctrinal statement. Anyone who has read the text knows that the severity of consequences for different sins varies significantly. Adultery in the ancient legal code was treated with extraordinary seriousness, not because the people writing the rules were trying to be harsh, but because they understood what the violation of a covenant between two people does to the fabric of a community, the stability of families, the trust that holds societies together. These are not abstract ideas. They are the very concrete building blocks of functional human communities. And when you erode them, even in entertainment, even on social media, even framed as celebrity gossip, you are participating in something that has real downstream effects on real people. Here is the question that should be haunting everyone who watches situations like this play out. Why does it keep happening? Why, after consequences arrive, after bans and lawsuits and public backlash and financial cost, does the behavior continue? Why does the pattern not break? Because patterns break when the pain of continuation exceeds the benefit of continuing. And for as long as the benefit, the attention, the validation, the engagement, the feeling of power that comes from going viral, from being talked about, from having an army of people defending you, for as long as that benefit feels greater than the cost, the pattern continues. It is not complicated psychology. It is the most basic cost-benefit calculation human beings make, often unconsciously, every single day. The trap that public figures fall into, especially those who have known fame but whose current relevance feels threatened, is that any attention starts to feel like good attention. The engagement that comes from drama becomes indistinguishable from the engagement that came from achievement. The comments that pour in when you are in a fight feel similar to the comments that pour in when you are winning a championship. The brain does not easily distinguish between types of attention. It just registers the volume. And volume feels like validation. And validation feels like love. And for people who are operating from a wounded place, from insecurity, from a sense that their worth is tied to how many people are talking about them, any form of love will do. But here is what they do not tell you about that kind of attention hunger. It never actually fills you. You can consume it by the millions of impressions and still go to bed feeling hollow. Because it is not real. It is not the kind of sustained, unconditional, accountable investment that actually feeds the soul. It is fast food. It gives you a hit and then leaves you more depleted than before. And the only way to get the next hit is to do something bigger, something louder, something more extreme. Which is why escalation is built into this kind of behavioral pattern from the very beginning. You cannot stay at the same level of chaos and keep generating the same level of attention. So it has to get worse. It always has to get worse. Until something breaks. And the something that breaks is almost never the pattern itself, not first. First, what breaks is the person. The reputation, the opportunities, the relationships, the health sometimes, the career often. And only after enough of those things are sufficiently broken does the external noise finally get quiet enough for the truth to be heard. The people who were feeding you chaos were never on your side. They were on the side of the show. And you were the show. One of the most undervalued skills a person can develop, especially someone who lives in the public eye, whose decisions are magnified and amplified by media and social platforms, is discernment. The ability to look at what is being offered to you, what is being presented as support or validation or love, and accurately assess its actual nature. Not what it looks like, what it actually is. Not what it feels like in the moment, what it will produce over time. Because here is the hard truth about every person who showed up to tell Clarissa Shields she was not wrong when she was clearly wrong. They were not offering her discernment. They were offering her confirmation. And confirmation is not the same as truth. Confirmation tells you what you want to hear. Truth tells you what you need to hear. One of those things builds you. The other one keeps you comfortable while you slowly get smaller. And the most dangerous time in anyone's life is when they surround themselves exclusively with people who provide confirmation, because in that environment, correction becomes impossible. Growth becomes impossible. Real change becomes impossible. Because the moment anyone tries to introduce a truth that challenges the confirmation narrative, they get labeled a hater, an enemy, someone trying to bring you down. And the circle gets smaller. And the echo gets louder. And the disconnect from reality gets wider. What Clarissa Shields needs, and this is not hate, this is not a clap back, this is genuine analysis. What she needs is people around her who love her enough to tell her the truth when the truth is inconvenient. People who will pull her aside and say, I know you feel justified. I know you feel attacked. But right now, responding on social media is going to cost you more than it will gain you. Walk away. Protect your name. Protect your legacy. You are better than this fight. That is what real support looks like. It is not always comfortable. It does not feel like love in the moment. But it is the thing that actually protects you. It is the thing that actually serves you. And until she has that in her corner, the right voices, the right counsel, the right level of honest accountability, the pattern will continue. Because the fuel will keep being supplied. Before we close this out, there is one more angle that deserves to be addressed. And it is arguably the most uncomfortable one of all. Because we have spent the better part of this video analyzing the behavior of the people directly involved in this situation. But there is a party that almost never gets analyzed in these conversations, and that is us. The audience. The consumers. The people who click the videos, watch the live streams, fill the comment sections, share the posts, and keep the entire machine running. Because without the audience, there is no drama economy. Without the clicks, there is no incentive for the chaos. Without the consistent demand for conflict and entertainment and public humiliation and gossip, these situations would shrink. They would not generate millions of impressions. They would not keep generating new chapters. They would quietly fade, the way things do when nobody is paying attention to them. But we keep paying attention. Every single time. And then we shake our heads at the behavior of the people involved. We say things like, she needs help. We say, why does she keep doing this? We say, this is so sad to watch. And then we watch the next video about it. And the one after that. And we share it. And we comment. And we contribute our little unit of engagement to the machine that keeps it all alive. That is not a moral accusation. That is an honest observation about how the media landscape actually functions. And if we are going to have real conversations about accountability, if we are actually interested in truth and not just entertainment, we have to be willing to turn that lens on ourselves occasionally. Because the world we consume is a reflection of what we demand. And if we keep demanding chaos, the market will keep supplying it. At the end of everything, past all the social media posts, past all the beef, past all the back and forth that has generated millions of words of commentary,